Hey, 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 it is that time again, another episode of the Musician's Personal Development Podcast, and I am CC Bass.
And this is Wil Cameron.
And we are two seasoned musicians here to bring you the best actionable tips to help bring you to your best musician self. And today we are going to talk about how to set playing goals.
Yeah.
Very important, but before we hop into that, if you've been watching the Musician's Personal Development Podcast, or we call it the MPD Podcast for short, please subscribe to us on YouTube and like us on Facebook. Leave us some comments. If you have some questions, you could send us emails at mpdpodcast at gmail, and we'll be happy to listen to your story or listen to the questions that you have and respond to them. So with that, we get right into it. Setting playing goals. Very important, and I'll tell you the reason why I've chosen this is because I often listen to musicians talk about how they want to be like, I don't know, the world's best musicians. They have those people, those idols that they look at and they say, I want to be like that, and I've been guilty of that myself. And there's nothing wrong with that. The only challenge is that if you are really trying to go after that, that's kind of, I would just say that music is very subjective.
Right.
Okay. And so when it's very subjective, that means one, it's a matter of perception of what really good and it is. And then two, there's no one path to success in music. It can go so many different ways. So even your top musicians of the world, let's just say Yo-Yo Ma, just picking one out of the bunch here. He might be really good in one area, but he's a life learner of music because there's so many different things that he doesn't know that he could still go after. So we're all really a work in progress here.
Right. You're absolutely right. And, there's, back to, a lot of times we play, a lot of times we start to play because we admire someone. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with emulation. As musicians, we always steal each other's stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with perfecting that. There's nothing wrong with admiration. Where you see somebody, there's nothing wrong with being impressed by the way someone plays. But you can't play like someone who is not your voice. You're just emulating things. So this is more about practicing to be your best musician self. Not necessarily emulating something that like Yo-Yo Ma did. I mean, we all use the same notes. So to a degree, it's all going to be about the same as far as stealing licks and things like that. But it's really about putting your personal time in and identifying your own voice and coming up with techniques where you can actually become better and more agile as a player.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I also want to say is that being realistic about and putting some structure by what it is you're trying to go after. I'm a bass player, no secret there. I've said, hey, I want to be like Stanley Clarke. But what does that really mean? And it's not just me. I hear people say this all the time, man, if I was just as half as Stanley Clarke, if I was as half as, Yo-Yo Ma, I would just be happy. But what is half of being Stanley Clarke or half of Yo-Yo Ma mean? What does that look like?
Right.
And it's something I talk about in the book, Play Confidently, is the invisible bar of excellence. We say these things and in our mind, we're thinking that we're going to be like that, but we don't really know how to define that. And so what we're going to cover today is how to actually put that into some structure. And so we can actually work and get after that. Very, very good.
So that's great. So let's start out with the actionable tips, the things that they can start to do. So let's start at the beginning. Where do you start with something like that?
Okay, so I'm going to start off with something that I've really learned in the last couple of years and how important this is. Most people would say, well, you probably just need to just set some goals. Well, it actually goes further than that. I would say start by knowing your why. Why are you playing music? Why are you learning what you're learning? What is your overarching goal here so that you can make sure that every decision, everything that you do, every actionable thing that you do aligns with that why? And I would say, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room here. Wil has got on his biking uniform. He's a cyclist. And forgive me, I know nothing about cycling, but let's just take it in the context here. Will, if you're going to make a decision to cycle 300,000 miles, obviously I know nothing about cycling, but the question is why? Why would you do that? Is you've got to have a higher purpose here, because you're going to be tested. You're going to be tested, and there are going to be days where you're not going to want to practice. So having and knowing your why is going to help keep you focused. And I actually created one for my life in general, and I actually not just created it, I have it written everywhere. I have it written here, I have it written on my screensaver, and I say it to myself all the time. And my why in life is just to help billions of musicians around the world with their playing confidence. And so every decision, every conversation, every photo I take, everything I do is intentional, and it is to align with what my goal is here.
Right.
Practicing, taking gigs is so very important that you have that why.
Right. All the way funneled into, and it's interesting, and that's evidenced by when we started doing this, I kind of had my ideas about how I was going to help to develop people, and you had your ideas of how you wanted to develop people, and we were sitting there after a gig, sort of that I didn't even know you were going to walk into, and we were sitting there at the trunk of my car, and we were talking about that, and we had decided, you know what, you kind of want to do some stuff, and I want to do some stuff. We kind of neither of us compromised what we wanted to do. We didn't have a name for it, but we agreed this is what we want to do. And that was the bigger focus. And all of these lessons, all the different shows, all the things we've learned, the technologies, we started doing things that we never imagined we would do, but they all lead to that same overarching, why are we doing this? And that's right. Very impactful. And by the way, I don't know very many cyclists who've ridden 300,000 miles, but it's really cute, and it's a perfect example of, and you could apply this to cycling, or music, or pretty much anything that you want to achieve. It's how successful people move forward, and you've captured exactly what they're thinking when they achieve success. They define it, right?
Yeah.
So no, that's perfect. That's great. So let's jump into the actionable tips here. So now that you've got this overarching goal and purpose, how do you start slicing that up?
Yeah, so number one is the find your why, and then number two is to develop SMART goals. So like we said, music can go in so many different ways. There's no one path to success. You could be working on technique. You could be working on scales. You could be working on specific songs or reading. But you've got to somehow narrow that down. We've all heard SMART goals. What is it? Specific, measurable, attainable, achievable. Yeah.
This isn't about that, but we all know what SMART. Yes.
Yeah. So we want to break it down so we can make it measurable, so we can be able to, break it down into chunks and then go after it. So that's basically what you want to do. So for example, right now I have been working on my 16th notes, because I want my 16th notes to be more smooth in my playing naturally, just off the cuff, whether I'm soloing or just playing little licks here in songs. So I've been working with the metronome and at a certain speed, and have given myself so much time to work on my 16th notes, and I'll just and so that would be an example. Well, do you have one?
That's perfect. And and that's one of the challenges though, Cece, because as a drummer, we don't have scales. Drum music can be like real music, but each drum or cymbal is on a different line, so it doesn't translate the same way. But we can do the same thing. Drummers spend a lot of time practicing these independence drills where one arm is doing something, another arm is doing something, and your feet and legs are doing different things. So that and rudiments are the ways that we tend to practice. And speed and precision, just like with your instrument, we're both rhythm section players. So precision is there. We've got to be locked. I mean, people are looking for you to have good timing, Even
Right.
having good timing. Drummers don't you always use metronomes, so we have to kind of naturally understand what speeding up and slowing down is, and understanding the difference between macro and micro time and all this other crazy stuff. So, but you get better at it by establishing goals to do that. So,
Right.
And they have to be measurable. I mean, if you took anything out of the SMART thing, if you don't measure how you're doing it, you never know if you achieved it or not.
Right. And I also just want to caveat this by saying as you want to be like your idol, especially Ken, if you want to do a lot of the things they're doing, what you're grabbing is what we're talking about is the building blocks to help you get there. You may not be able to play exactly like them,
right.
But yeah, those building blocks that help you get there, that take to get to the playing skills.
That's perfect. And I appreciate you saying that, because that really establishes, once you have the building blocks, then you're still going to use those building blocks to execute your own musical voice. It's nice to be able to play that lick, like in what's the Chick Corea song?
Are you talking about the one Spain?
Spain,
often
yes. Thank you.
People do, yeah.
Everybody wants to play that. I mean, it's cool to be able to play that, but it's one thing to play that. But think about how cool would it be to have conceived that or something like that on your own. So it's the same building block. So thank you for bringing that out, because those building blocks are what enable you to be your best musician self, have your own voice, and to play like you. Even if you emulate Chick Corea and admire Chick Corea, you still want your own individual voice. I mean, even if your speaking voice, you don't want to sound like Chick Corea, you want to sound like your own voice.
Right, exactly.
So thank you for bringing that up. So, and then we got number 3.
Yeah, number 3 is be intentional. You have all these goals and everything, but you want it, and you set aside the practicing session and so forth, but you want to be intentional, and it goes back to your why. But Will, I know you have a lot of great examples and can elaborate.
That's right.
Really
so
good
I am the preparation guy. That is my thing, and it's not just me. Drummers have to be this way. There's a minimum of about 17 things you have to take with you everywhere just to play. And if you miss one of those things, your playing experience is going to be different. So we just are geared to be very organized. Those of us who are successful, I'll put it like that. But it's like being intentional. So I'll give you musical examples and traditional examples. So just having everything that you need. So whatever it is that you need before that practice, you have your goals, you've got your SMART goals carved out. So then you think about, maybe even the night before, what you're going to need to do that. Are you going to need a metronome? Do you need to find videos? Do you need to download some music? Do you need to talk to somebody? Do you need to watch something? Do you need snacks or a glass of water? Whatever it is that you need in that practice space, you want to do that intentionally, and you want to do it like you're serious about it, so that you can spend the required amount of time, whatever it is you carve out, whether that's 2 hours, 15 minutes, you want to make the most of that time. You want to be intentional, and you want to be purposeful. You want to do this with a passion. You really want to be serious about it, because if you're not, you could just spend 30 minutes because CC and I say, well, take about 30 minutes and go through scales. You could do that for 3 months, and all you're going to do is okay, well, they told me to go through scales and magically I'll be better. Well, it doesn't work that way. You have to be successful, what is required is that you put effort into it. You put work into it, like muscle memory, anything else that you want to build, or riding the 300,000 miles like CC mentioned before. So, I have to start by intentionally riding 4 miles, so 6 miles, and 8 miles. Think of it like this. Have you ever seen somebody who tells you they're going to do something, and they do it just because they said they were going to do it? They don't really do it because they want to. There's a big difference between somebody who says, hey, yeah, I'll pick you up and take you to the grocery store because, my car is down. So, somebody who really intentionally does that is going to say, well, okay, I'll take you to the grocery store, And on the way back, you might say, well, hey, can I stop here real quick? They say, well, sure, I don't mind. I got time. And they're going to help you do that. They're going to accommodate you, as opposed to someone who says, all right, well, come on. You said you'd be here. I mean, so there's a big difference between somebody who does what they're supposed to do, who does it intentionally and with purpose and feels good about it, versus somebody who just does it out of obligation. So you can't build the right relationship with your instrument if you just say, oh, okay, let me go in here and get this violin. It's like, that's not the way to approach practice. You have to do it in a very intentional manner to get the results. What do you think about all of that?
I think it's. I think you're pretty spot on. We want these things, and we want greatness, but really, without a target, you're going to miss every time.
Absolutely.
So very, very important to take these tips and actually apply them. And we're not just reading books and just bringing you messages. These are things that we are actually putting into practice. I use it every day. And like I said, I've got my why on the board. I've got my goals on the board, and I'm revisiting them every day.
Yes.
And being intentional.
In
music. Yes, in music and every. Right. So I'm doing that in music and everywhere in life.
Yes.
So that everything I do is in alignment. So,
like so many other things that we've talked about, it is amazing how we just happen to be talking about music, but you could switch it to another aspect of life, and it just seems to work in other places as well, which is very cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, so Wil, what are the actionable tips, the recap of the actionable tips today?
Okay, all right. So this program is about setting playing goals, and there are 3 things that are really simple. One is knowing the why, the big picture, the thing that connects everything. The second is establishing your SMART goals, those things that are measurable and attainable, so that you can actually monitor how you progress. And the third one is being intentional, like having purpose with regard to how you practice and everything surrounding that. And that's it for us.
Right. Okay. So thank you again. I hope you got as much out of this show as Wil and we've put into practice and implement. And, again, we want to hear your story, what your comments, your feedback, your questions.
Or your ideas. Even if you have ideas
absolutely.
For things that we're not talking about, we would love. We've actually gotten a couple. We would love to have a few more where people want to know or people want us to discuss things.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you want to hear? So you can find us on MPD Podcast on Facebook. So again, please subscribe to the link below on YouTube. And as well as if you want to email us, you can email, our email address is mpdpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
Feel free to reach out. Also, if you need help with your why, because it's not necessarily an easy process. It may sound easy, but it isn't. It actually took me years before I could actually create one, and I found that it is actually challenging for people. But there are all kinds of masterminds out there about helping people trying to figure out their why. But you can also reach out to me if you would like to have a conversation. So, okay, so with that, I think we are done. This is a wrap, and we are out of here. I am CC Bass.
And this is Wil Cameron.
All right, and I think you're getting ready to go and cycle right now, right?
I'm going to go
cycle
ride 300,000 miles.
All right, we'll see you next time.